How seriously do you treat sin? You know, nowadays, especially in our contemporary society, sinning is actually virtuous. Good is evil and evil is good, according to the biblical standard that God has set. And in that vein, I want to really reflect upon how seriously we take our sin. Do we think that sin is something which is willy-nilly, something that you can brush off? Or do we understand the eternal consequences of the actions we partake in this life? And that's what we're going to go through in this episode of Biblical Unlocks. This show is designed to help build your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. As studies routinely show that those who read their Bibles regularly have significantly lower symptoms of depression, anxiety, and anger, whilst also significantly higher symptoms of compassion, forgiveness, and a sense of purpose. So if you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, it helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. And today we're going to be going through Exodus chapter 38, which is not the penultimate. There's obviously Exodus chapter 39, but there's only 2 more chapters left in Exodus, and we've gone through the whole array. We've gone through Moses' story, we've gone through the story of the 10 plagues with Pharaoh, the rescue of the Israelites out of Egypt, crossing the Red Sea, parting the Red Sea, all of these things we've gone through, and now we're going through some laws as well as the building of the courtyard, the tabernacle, how to properly worship God. We also went through the golden calf incident. All of this is going to be foundational. And now we're going to record the completion of the courtyard and its equipment and the people's contribution, and the construction of the bronze altar for burnt offerings and its utensils, the making of the bronze laver, the hangings and pillars of the outer court. Basically, we're building a temple for God to worship Him. And we're going to go through the chapter now, all 24 verses. Verses 1 to 7, we're focusing on the bronze altar, its utensils, that's its shape, gratings, horns, poles. And my question to you is, how seriously do I treat the cost/structure of atonement in my life? Is sacrifice real to me, or is it sentimental? He made the altar of burnt offering of acacia wood. It was 5 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. It was square and was 3 cubits high. He made horns for it on its 4 corners. Its horns were of one piece, and he overlaid it with bronze. He made all the utensils of the altar, the pots, the shovels, the basins, the forks, and the fire pans. All its utensils he made of bronze. He made for the altar a grating, a network of bronze, under its ledge, extending halfway down. He cast 4 rings on the 4 corners of the bronze grating to hold the poles. He made the poles of acacia wood, and overlaid them with bronze, and he put the poles through the rings on the sides of the altar to carry it with them. He made it hollow with boards. Okay, verse 8. We have the bronze laver, which is going to be made from the mirrors of serving women. Alright, so what practices here prepare me to minister before God? He made the basin of bronze with its stand of bronze from the mirrors of women who served at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Next, verses 9 to 20, we're going to see the hangings and pillars of the outer court and the gate and the entrance screen. So my question to you is, where are the boundaries in my life that protect worship from just casual living? Verse 9, he made for the court, for the south side of the hangings of the court, were of fine twisted linen, 100 cubits long. Its 20 pillars and their 20 bases were of bronze, but the hooks of the pillars and their bands were of silver. For the north sides there were hangings, 100 cubits long. Its 20 pillars and their 20 bases were of bronze, but the hooks of the pillars and their bands were of silver. For the west side there were hangings 50 cubits long, with 10 pillars and 10 bases. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were of silver. And for the front to the east 50 cubits. The hangings for one side of the gate were 15 cubits, with 3 pillars and 3 bases, and likewise for the other side. On each side of the gate of the court were hangings of 15 cubits, with 3 pillars and 3 bases. All the hangings around the court were of fine twisted linen. The bases for the pillars were of bronze, but the hooks of the pillars and their bands were of silver. The overlaying of their capitals was also of silver, and all the pillars of the court were banded with silver. Verse 18. The screen for the entrance to the court was embroidered with needlework in blue, purple, and crimson yarns and fine twisted linen. It was 20 cubits long, along the width of it, 5 cubits high, corresponding to the hangings of the court. There were 4 pillars. Their 4 bases were of bronze, their hooks of silver, and the overlaying of their capitals, and their bands of silver. All the pegs for the tabernacle and for the court all around were of bronze. Okay, final verses 20 to 31. So here we're going to be focusing on the census and atonement money accounted and used for the sanctuary. So my question to you is, do our systems like counting and funding, do they dignify people, or do they treat them like items? And how do we fund communal worship responsibly? Hopefully we'll get the answer in this segment. All the gold that was used for the work in all the construction of the sanctuary, the gold from the offering, was 29 talents and 730 shekels, measured by the sanctuary shekel. The silver from those of the congregation who were counted was 100 talents and 1,775 shekels, measured by the sanctuary shekel. A beker a head, that is half a shekel, measured by the sanctuary shekel, for everyone who was counted in the census, from 20 years old and up, for 603,550 men. The 100 talents of silver were for casting the bases of the sanctuary, and the bases of the curtain, 100 bases for the 100 talents, 1 talent per base. Of the 1,775 shekels, he made hooks for the pillars and overlaid their capitals and made bands for them. The bronze offering was 70 talents and 2,400 shekels. With it he made the bases for the entrance of the tent of meeting, the bronze altar and the bronze grating for it, and all the utensils of the altar, the bases all around the court, and the bases of the gate of the court, all the pegs of the tabernacle, and all the pegs around the court. Alright, let's get into some deep biblical unlocks. Verses 1 to 7, we saw the bronze altar. It's a public place of atonement. The craftsmen make the altar of burnt offering from acacia wood, overlaid with bronze, with its horn, its gratings, and rings for poles. And the chapter makes the altar's purpose plain. It is the place where sacrifices are offered and where the community meets the cost required to stand near God. Why? Atonement is public, visible, and costly. It isn't private therapy, but it's communal reality. And the horns, again, what do horns symbolize in the Bible? That's right, it symbolizes power and refuge. The grating and utensils show careful, ordered, sacrificial practice. What this is saying is the Israelites, they take sin very seriously. That is to say, if you commit a sin, there are all these ritualistic practices and all of these things that need to take place in order to account for the gravity of the sin, in order to recognize the immense fracture that has been placed in the relationship between you and God. In verse 8, we see the bronze laver. What does the laver do? It's essentially just washing before service. Bezalel makes the bronze laver and its base, and the material for the basin comes from the polished mirrors of the women who served at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The people contribute ordinary domestic objects which were then transformed into instruments of ritual purification. That is to say, washing before ministry is essentials. Priests wash their hands and their feet before entering the tent, right? And approaching the altar. And this is mirroring what Jesus did in John chapter 13. Jesus washed the feet of his disciples as an act of service and holiness. And here we wash our hands and our feet. The priests wash their hands and their feet before entering the tent or approaching the altar. And the mirrors here, they are instruments of vanities, right? People will look at themselves in the mirror and think about themselves, right? Who they are, what they're doing, and it's quite selfishly oriented. But the instruments of vanity is repurposed for a tool of holiness. That's what we see. Take something which could be used for evil and turn it into something that can be used for good. Genesis chapter 50 verse 20. What you intended for evil, God intended for good. Right? Verse 9 to 20, we see the chapter recounting the construction of the courtyard, hangings, the pillars, the gate screen that invites yet disciplines approach. The court actually creates a perimeter for worship, which is again accessible but also defined within certain parameters. The boundaries protect holiness and they make hospitality welcome. So that is to say, the gate welcomes, the hangings there, it distinguishes, and the pillars provide structure. All of these practical elements teach that sacredness depends on both invitation and order. And this has all been leading up from Exodus 26 with the tabernacle structure, Exodus 27 with the court instructions, and now we're actually seeing the construction of the tabernacle here. Okay, final verses 21 to 31. Moses provides an accounting of the half-shekel ransom and atonement money collected from the people, how it was spent for the work of the tent. The passage also emphasizes transparency, accountability, and the equalizing nature of the half shekel. Each person contributed the same value when counted. Counting people, right, can easily objectify them, and that's what I was talking about in that focus question. But when you attach an atonement payment when they are numbered, that aids in preserving their dignity. The money here is used for communal worship, the good of the community rather than individual gain. And the bookkeeping, right, keeping track of what's going on, actually models trustworthy stewardship, prevents corruption, and emphasizes again that transparency that is required in a functioning society. So my questions to you at the beginning is, how seriously do you take sin? I want you to reflect upon the chapter we've just read in Exodus chapter 38. As we're rounding Exodus off to a close, it's important that we recognize a few things. The first one is, if I do not take sin seriously, would you have survived in ancient Israel? Probably not, right? Because if you commit a sin, you need to offer a sacrifice to atone for that sin. Now, our perfect sacrifice, our unblemished lamb, is Jesus Christ, who dies for our sin and makes us clean. In the same way, if you do not treat sin and forgiveness, right? Do you treat sin and forgiveness as hidden problems? Or do you think they are something that needs to be confronted and healed and taken very seriously? Sin separates us from God, and that which separates us from God needs to be taken very seriously. Again, you can see that in Exodus, in the courtyard, we see that there are clear gates, hangings, schedules, screens, guardrails, right? So it's important to have boundaries within your spiritual life. What do you let enter into your soul? What music do you listen to? What practices do you engage in? Who do you surround yourself with? These are questions which seem mundane. Oh, I can hang out with everyone. I can listen to anything. It's just music. It's just my friends. But if you do not create hospitable boundaries, if you are incapable of separating sin from your life, you can't feed on the Word of God and then snack on sin in the meanwhile. You have to be either all in with God, or it even says this in Revelation chapter 3 verse, I think it's 10 to 11. You can't have one foot in the kingdom of heaven and one foot in the world. You need to be hot or cold for God, not lukewarm. So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. This show is designed to help you keep up your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. I upload daily, so if you don't want to miss tomorrow's episode, feel free to rate the show and follow. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And always remember, If you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.